Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today we have Senator Jim Webb from the state of Virginia versus Carly Fiorina, the former CEO of HP. Um, Ultimately, we're going to see how this worked out. I guess this would be an alternative 2016 election prediction, considering neither of them got the 2016 party nomination. And I think that would be best for the scenario, so we don't actually include Trump for the majority of the scenario, because if it was in 2020, I would factor in Trump and after 4 years. But honestly, we're gonna go with 2016. So starting off with home states, I mean, Jim Webb's home state of Virginia, I would still give that one to him. Although he was somewhat unpopular, he wasn't the best candidate to run in 2016. I mean, he was dubbed a Republican, and he was a previous Republican. And I honestly thought he had no chance of getting the nomination. But overall, we have him from the state of Virginia. I would give him Virginia just ever so slightly because of the fact that he's from the state and he did serve as a former senator from there. However, as for Carly Fiorina's home state, she's from Texas. Obviously, that one would go to her. Really no contest going out to states like Texas, but we're going to fill in a majority of the country now for Carly Fiorina and Jim Webb, because a number of these states that were deemed toss-ups in 2016 would not become toss-ups again. West Virginia, I'm not going to touch just yet. We'll talk about it. It's probably going to go to Fiorina, if I'm being completely honest with you, but we're going to just see how it goes. So the Western Coast, regardless of the Democratic candidate, will go to the Democrats, especially in 2016. Because we already have the results from there. Going up to Maine, I'll leave one electoral vote up. Carly Fiorina isn't necessarily the best candidate. As for the toss-up states, I'm going to fill them all in right now. I forgot to fill in Illinois for Webb. I'll do that in just a second. There we go. So 195 electoral votes for Jim Webb. Actually, 198, I apologize. And 154 are toss-up, and 186 for Carly Fiorina. Some obvious ones, West Virginia is probably not going to go to Jim Webb. The fact that Jim Webb dropped out before the Iowa caucus, even if he did go through with it and did become the nominee, I highly doubt he would have won in Iowa. I mean, a lot of his base is an older part of the Democratic Party, the conservative Democrats, and they aren't necessarily the majority in Iowa. I mean, he would have to bring out African-American turnout to keep it from going to the GOP, especially with how many African-Americans and minorities moved out of the state, making it more Republican than it usually was. We look over to states like North Carolina and Florida. He might do well in North Carolina, but going down to Florida, Carly Fiorina would have a very strong base. I mean, she would win over Jim Webb. She would win the women's vote drastically. She definitely would be someone who could inspire them. Going to the RNC, her push would probably push up through the election. Again, with a state like Ohio, again, Jim Webb cannot bring out African Americans to vote. If anything, he would suppress them. And it wouldn't necessarily be the best thing for him just to appeal to older Democrats, because regardless, they are still a part of the Democratic Party, and he's not really gaining on any of the votes that he needed. The same way Hillary Clinton didn't get the younger vote the same way she was supposed to. The white working class, when they leave the Democratic Party, fails, and they were a part of the Democratic Party. Him grabbing onto the older vote of the Democratic Party, they still vote Democratic, so it's not like he's gaining in any votes. North Carolina, I think he would do better than he would do in states like Florida and Ohio, but I would still give that to Carly Fiorina. Going up to the Northeast, I most definitely would give her New Hampshire. I mean, she would be a very strong candidate for the GOP to run for the Northeast. With the disregarding Maine, I'll give that one electoral vote to Jim Webb, but I still think that the state of New Hampshire would go to Carly Fiorina. I think she would be a strong enough candidate to grasp onto a lot of those voters, the same way Donald Trump almost won them over. Going over to states like Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, that's a little bit iffy because Jim Webb has more of a white working class appeal than Hillary Clinton did. But again, you still need African-American voters to come out, and I highly doubt Barack Obama would be that inclined to campaign for him the same way he did for Senator Clinton, Secretary Clinton, whatever. But I think the Rust Belt would do the same thing it did for Trump and ultimately give Carly Fiorina the victory. I think she would be able to rile out women more than Trump did, and when you expand on women, that takes away a lot of the Democrats' voting base. And when African Americans don't come out to vote, Democrats lose. And we go over to a state like Colorado, I would give that one to Carly Fiorina. I think that the state there would vote for Carly Fiorina. The same thing with Nevada. I do not see a Jim Webb possibility. If anything, he would lose a number of his voters because he's not liberal enough. There was arguments about that with Hillary, so she had to change her stance to being a progressive instead of a moderate in order to win the Democratic nomination. Going up to Minnesota and New Mexico, I mean, if the rest of the country's flipping, Minnesota would probably flip, but honestly, I just think Jim Webb would narrowly edge it out there. Same thing in New Mexico. I just think that the overall Democratic presence would be enough to give him the victory there. So final electoral map, 324 electoral votes for Carly Fiorina to 214 for Jim Webb. Thank you guys for watching this video, and I'll see you all later today.